Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome to the latest dungeon that I've put together for Dicey Depths, an upcoming Dicey Depths session. And yeah, I'm really excited about this one. We are moving into a new era of Dicey Depths where we are incorporating more tactical combat. So if you've ever seen any of my Dicey Depths videos, combat was kind of like how it might be in a old school turn-based JRPG where you have your party of heroes, you have your enemies, and you're just on a field of battle. And tactical placement doesn't matter. It's just kind of you go, I go in initiative order. And that's always been fantastic, especially for theater of the mind and not even using figures. But more recently, we've done some outdoor exploration and some other tactical combat on grids that have ended up working out really, really well. And people seem to really like that. Everyone still enjoys sitting back, rolling dice, but at the same time, some of them are a little bit more hands-on. They want to position their character in an advantageous way, and I can't blame them. That's always kind of my favorite thing in skirmish war games and whatnot as well. So, we're going to give this a shot. This is a gigantic dungeon that I just finished putting together. Tubs and tubs of obviously Dwarven Forge and tons of accessories, a lot. So most of the accessories are WizKids, though some are Dwarven Forge, some are even Miniature Building Authority. All of the walls, doors, and floors are all Dwarven Forge. This is the Dwarvenite stuff that they released years and years ago. Most of this is just the original stuff, but we do have some of the more recent Dungeon of Doom wall pieces here or there, mostly because they have the LED capabilities, but also some of the magnetization, which we'll show off in a second. My table over the years, so I've been in this house almost 10 years. It's been 9.5 years. I got this table year one. So this good old table has so many games played around it. But man, I've really kind of outgrown it because it is the recessed playing area, which I designed this dungeon because I don't know when we're all going to play this. And this is going to be a more than one session situation and possibly with different groups of people. So I need to put the top on for just regular game nights. So this dungeon in its entirety is flush, which is crazy, right? Flush with the top, so when I put this big old top on here, it'll be fine. Now there are a couple little things that I'm gonna have to tip over because like pieces of furniture like that raises above the level. But how cool is it that the Dwarven Forge tiles, I did not even plan this, the recessed area for this is the tiles are just under this top part here, which is fantastic. Also, these things here I'm going to have to remove, but that is just small, small potatoes there. But anyways, so I designed this so I could put the cover on it because this is going to be a definitely multi-session situation. Anyways, I don't even know where I was going with that. I kind of lost track of what I was talking about. I tend to ramble quite a bit, and it's like 4 in the morning right now because oh my gosh, I was just going at it all night. I just had this spur of the moment idea and just wanted to, run through it. Anyways, so yes, the Dwarven Forge is, back open for business here with all of these kind of all the most of the terrain actual features of this dungeon is the Dwarven Forge stuff. So anyways, I was saying the table is kind of small. The interior recessed area is 5 by 3, which again, it's really cool how you can start on one end and just expand, and it's basically almost exactly able to do a 5 by 3, which is just absolutely thrilling. But oh my gosh, in recent months, our Dicey Depths games have grown. Originally it was 3 player characters, and including me, I was also a character. But I've now become like just the full time game master. And our groups have grown. We had like a 10-person game where there were 10-player characters. So we split the party into 2 parties of 5. And I think that was our biggest one. I believe that was our biggest one. But so yeah, these parties keep getting bigger and bigger, and having to deal with them is a lot of fun, actually. But what I did here, it doesn't matter necessarily. The reason I commented on the table size was because it's hard. I don't mind playing with 10-player characters. The problem is the space. So, you might have 2 and maybe 3 and 2 more, and there's 7. And what I've actually done before tactical combat was a thing was I'd put another smaller table here and then more chairs surrounding it. So everyone just, you just need your clipboard and pen. But yeah, now that we're doing this tactical combat, everyone's going to need to be hunched over the table to actually move on the grid, which is always a fantastic thing for Dwarven Forge. But so here's the idea. There are 3 entrances, and you can kind of see the entrances are actually these beautiful double door pieces. There are 3 of them. This is just a big old keep, single level. That's the other thing. I wanted to keep it single layer to be able to put the top on, obviously. Though I had toyed with the idea of, splitting this up and doing like a third of it is one level, another level. But I was like, oh, whatever. We will just do it all a single level, which I just love the way it ended up turning out looking. It's just absolutely fantastic. So before anyone asks, this is for Dicey Depths, which is kind of a tactical role-playing war game hybrid, especially now with the tactical movement. But I don't play any published role-playing games or anything like that. So this is just a game of my own creation. The rules, people email me and ask me, which I am very flattered by, when the rules for Dicey Depths will be in a publishable state. Currently, I tinker with them all the time, and they evolve all the time. Every group that we play with just is kind of almost a play test group. So this has now been play tested, I don't know, 100 times. And it just evolves every single time, essentially. I mean, the core mechanics are the same, but I tinker with it all the time. It's like an evolution thing. I just fear, I know this is going to be maybe disappointing to some people, that it's just going to remain an in-house thing, just a rule set that I play with my friends. I just can't imagine publishing something and then thinking, oh my gosh, now let's do it like this, and then have a million different supplements and rules revisions and FAQs and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, so I know that's probably disappointing for some people to hear, but that's probably the way it is. I just have an absolute blast with this, and like I said, the groups keep growing, and that is so awesome. People keep saying like, yeah, now I want to bring so-and-so over. I think they'd really like it too. And so now we have just oodles of people, which again is absolutely fantastic. My favorite nights are Dicey Depths nights. And the character campaigns from one session to the next, seeing them progress and level up, and the stories, oh my god, the stories are fantastic. Anyway, so 3 entrances. Because it's so funny, and I'm gonna keep rambling. Again, it's 4 a.m. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna keep rambling. Hopefully that it's somewhat entertaining. And God, now what was I even talking about? So the way we're doing this with the 3 entrances is that it doesn't matter necessarily how many people end up coming over as a group to play. If it's a huge group, we're gonna split them at different entrances. Oh, I know where I was going with that original statement, which was, so many people make fun of dungeon design with a single entrance and, a maze-like path all the way to the end. Like, how stupid is that? Just for so many tactical reasons, which I certainly agree with. So that's why I also made sure there were 3 entrances. So this is like, yeah, there's multiple ways in, multiple ways out. And yes, we even have bathrooms in here as well. Some people always make fun of that too. We have chamber pots next to bedsides. The one trope that I am sticking with that I love to do in these dungeons is the ecosystem, the what do you call it? The demographics of this dungeon is a little bit of everything, folks. So yes, we are going to have cultists in the wine cellar, right next to bandits, right next to a minotaur in the kitchen, ratmen in the brewery room. I mean, come on. We're just saying that this absolute demon of a monstrosity here, bubbling up from the blood pit, has really just summoned all callers to himself. So he's the one in charge. So I don't know if I'm going to post this until after we've at least played the very first iteration of this, because I know there are people who will play in the game who watch this channel, and we're going to go into a lot of spoilers. I really want to document this just like I documented some of my other ones, but I really wanted to do this end-to-end table, fill it up with Dwarven Forge, and go to town. This was almost all of my floors, actually, from the first Dungeons Kickstarter. So let's say, here we go. This is the way it's going to work. All right, let's pick this entrance. The entrances are all guarded by kobolds, and I did a video on these. My dear friends actually 3D printed and painted all of these kobolds, and it was for my birthday, and I was like bawling my eyes out when they handed these to me. It was such a fantastic gift. One of the recent ramblings I had gone on the channel was the lack of range. You know, when WizKids does their pre-painted war bands of like kobolds and goblins and stuff, there is so few range, and we need range. And so they made sure when they printed and painted all these figures that there was so much range. Anyway, so in all three entrances, there are 3 ways to go. There's going to be 1 blocked entrance on each of them. So for example, there's 2 doors on either side there with a locked door in front. This one just happens to have a portcullis in front. These torches actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this one hand. At least I can pull this out of here. These LEDs from Dwarven Forge are fantastic. Every player is going to have their own torch. And in fact, we have these standing torch bases, which are fantastic, that Dwarven Forge creates as well. So it's just it's a perfect 1x1 grid. So when your player character is on there, move them around with the torch. So that's fantastic. Everyone is going to start with a torch. What they will find doesn't matter which entrance they use, is that all 3 ways are going to be locked. If one of them decides to give up their torch, which it's going to end up having to happen, they can stick their torch in the socket, which again, one-handed is not the easiest thing to do, but you get the idea. It'll unlock that door. Now they can leave the torch there, and that door will be able to be passed through freely. They will be down a torch, however. This dungeon is not the most well-lit dungeon. But all 3 entrances are guarded by kobolds. The 2 doors on the right and left are unlockable by sacrificing your torch into the sconce. And then we have this portcullis ahead of us, which remains locked. Even if both torches are lit, it remains locked. And the sacrificing the torch thing isn't a huge deal. Like if they're clever enough to, break a piece, or, go to the next room, break a chair, light that, and they still have like the leg of the chair lit while this remains lit, that's fine. That's just kind of a fun thing I wanted to do to plug these things in to unlock these doors. Anyway, let's move over here. This is going to be a long video because I really want to detail every single room here. So I apologize. Again, I'm going to be super rambly. In this room to the right, let's say they venture in here where we have lizardmen. We have a trio of lizardmen. We have a demon door that remains locked, and it's just a storage room. They are going to notice that a rat seems to have chewed through this door. Entering in this, first of all, is going to trigger a trap. Now, the what's going to happen, which I probably should have mentioned at the start, if you saw one of my last big dungeon exploration videos, I cover all of this in black poster board, cut to similar shape as the room is, but sometimes a little bit different, so they aren't completely aware of what shape the room is. Plus, the poster board sometimes layers on each other, so you don't quite know what the shape of the room is. But the shape of the room honestly doesn't matter, and you'll pick up on that as we continue on. But also, all of these enemies are going to be in their corresponding rooms. That makes it easier for me. I don't have to keep leaning over and putting, who belongs in what room out. This is just going to be, when they enter the entrance, it's 4 kobolds. When they take a right, it's going to be 3 lizardmen. The 3 lizardmen are going to be in here in these spots. The tactical combat is, you move your speed. There's kind of an AI built into the opponents where they're going to prioritize who hit them last. They're going to then go to the closest to them. Some of the opponents have range, some don't. So that's obviously going to factor into it. And if no one's within a certain amount, then they just move and they don't engage in a combat. Anyways, so this door appears to have been chewed through by a rat. There is a little rat. They're going to, think, oh, that's just a sweet little rat. And it's going to turn into this were-rat, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Additionally, I have the traps already sprung everywhere. These will not be out here. So if they don't check this door, just thinking it's a broken, chewed through door, when they open it, yeah, this crossbow is going to, and this is one of those magnetic things from Dwarven Forge. So that crossbow will go right there and then shoot whoever opened that door, but that's just a little storage room, dead end. All right. Cannot get through that demon door just yet. It's going to require a key. So, all right, we come back through here. We've kind of done everything that we can over there. Can't get through that portcullis here. We can move over here. This is where the cultists, a couple range, a couple melee cultists in the wine cellar. And once we make our way through here, there's 2 options. Which way do we want to go? Let's say we went straight. We have some exterminators. Now, they didn't catch that last rat, or maybe he's a buddy of theirs, but these exterminators are fantastic. These are Dwarven Forge figures, actually. And this is a giant cockroach cavalry with a exterminator on it. So this exterminator squad is in this kind of produce room. So as you can see, this is still a very fully functional keep. Once they deal with that, they can move to the left, and in we go into the kitchen where there is a Minotaur. So in Dicey Depths, there's 3 tiers of opponents: Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And actually, that's a lie. There is a Tier 4. Tier 4, though, is just the final boss of the encounter. But a Tier 3 is kind of like a mini sub-boss. So the Minotaur is going to engage in that. The bosses like this, the mini-boss and the bosses, I should say, and the final boss are the only combats where we go back to the classic Dicey Depths combat, where position doesn't matter, because what's going to end up happening is they're just all going to surround him, or stand back at range and fire, what not have you. So we're just going to go back to the regular Dicey Depths combat, where I think that original Dicey Depths combat shines in these mini boss battles. So it's just all the heroes against the mini boss, and going in initiative order, and placement doesn't matter. Once they take care of the Minotaur, and I'll also try to remember whenever I've hidden something in here. So in this dishwater, obviously this isn't going to be floating here, but if they search, they're going to find this. And why do they care about this? Well, we'll show you in just a sec. They can go one of 2 ways again. If they've already kind of avoided this room, they may continue into this room, which is kind of a brewery room where there are 3 ratmen. But let's say they did come back in here. This is just like a great hall. There are, I believe, 5 bandits in the great hall. And either way, no matter which way they went, they come this way. And look, this enters into that other entrance where there are 4 kobolds. Now, unlike entrance 1 that had the portcullis that can't be opened just yet, this room has the 2 side doors that can be opened by lighting a torch, and then this center door can also be unlocked, not with a torch, but that's where they can find one of these and plug this in, and it'll glow blue, and then you can enter in there. Of course, if they do enter through this way, they are going to face quite a spooky vulture that is also another mini boss. And then let's say they headed through this door here. There's going to be, if they don't already find this, there's going to be something like if they started on that end, a rumor about a curved room. The only circular kind of curved room in the entire dungeon. And there's going to be some kind of rumor about something potentially in here. There are 3 lizard men in here. There is a secret thing that is hidden inside of here, and there is this wall, which we'll talk about how it can be opened at a later time. But if they are able to perceive that that is a potential way for them to go, they'll have to figure out how to get that wall open. But then they can wheel back around this way and into this chamber. And this is a barracks where there are 3 orcs. And then back through this door into this kind of, if everyone is, all the generic soldiers may eat in the Great Hall, but this is kind of more of an officer's dining area where we have these dark elf minions. And then through this door there are 3 orcs. It's kind of a raided treasury that there's not going to be much else in there, and that is the other side of the portcullis. So it depends on if they got through this or if they were able to unlock that portcullis. It's also going to be a little bit different than a lot of Dicey Depths games in that it's kind of like a all or nothing situation where you can leave a dungeon at any time, but when you do then start back over, everything's repopulated. You're starting from scratch. So it's kind of an all or nothing thing. If you are invested in this, you're going to go through the entire thing. In this situation, because of how huge it is, we are going to tackle it in chunks, and leaving at times may be the best option, but you literally have to get the heroes, the actual figures out. So even though they, made it all the way over here, and you're like, well, we started there, so what is so good about this? Well, it's kind of a shortcut then, but we'll talk about how to open that portcullis in just a sec. This was that barracks back through there. They may not know about that wall yet. Coming through here then, inside of here is a fountain room, and it's kind of a statue room. There's all these like stone statues and rubble of previous statues, and it is guarded by these skeletons, which are my favorite skeletons of all time. These are Dwarven Forge pre-painted skeletons from way back in the day, and yes, that is string on the bow. That's just absolutely glorious. I've used this piece in other adventures before. There are 3 areas where things can be plugged into it, and that is definitely something that they are going to want to search for, because plugging in those 3 things are actually what is going to open these 3 false walls. So, you plug something into the left one, the left door is going to open. The middle one unplugs the middle one, and then the one on the right. Once all 3 of them have been plugged in, that will there's nowhere they can't go once that happens. But all of this stuff has been strategically placed throughout the dungeon. So they're pretty much there's like no room you can't avoid. You are going to have to probably hit every room. There is so inside here is actually going to be a key to that green door there, because they're going to need to get into that side, and that's why there's 2 green doors here. There are 2 keys, but as long as you find one, it'll unlock both, but it depends on if you started over here, if you started over there, because they are going to need a book. I know we just skipped over a lot of stuff, but we'll be back. This is the library. And there is a book here on how to translate what is happening on this false wall. And this false wall, having opened that, is actually going to give you the middle component of this. Yeah, it was just literally right next door. But again, if you hadn't started over there and found that, which by the way, it's behind its own locked door, that you need to find the other of these, which is hidden over there. We'll talk about that in a second. So, you're over here. If you want to get this eventually, you are going to have to go over there. There are multiple ways to get through this, so it may not be absolutely necessary to have unlocked this, but it may possibly be the most efficient way. Also, there is treasure in there. So that's something else I typically haven't done. Sometimes, you'll draw an item card, which may be appraised at a town or village that'll give you some cash. Also, some kind of reward for doing whatever this quest is or whatnot. But I haven't typically placed like actual gold in these rooms and whatnot in adventures past. And so that's something new I'm going to try because I just think it's kind of a nice little reward during the scenario as well. Gives them more incentive to leave if things are looking bad as well, so that they have something to hold on to. Anyways, so there you have it. So that is that side, and that leads us all the way back over here. So if they found the key, they can get into this side, which is a kind of an altar, almost like a chapel room. Again, a bunch of skeletons in here. And then through this other green demon door is just kind of a sitting area where the restroom is. And that other glowing globe is going to be inside of the toilet. So they got to search inside of there. And in this room are a bunch of zombies. And another great thing about these figures is a different dear friend of mine knows how much I love these figures. Commissioned a seller on Etsy. Hopefully you can kind of get a peek at that. Yeah, this one is a very chesty zombie. But this Etsy seller, like, modified, I don't know if these are GW figures or Mantic figures. Like, this is a dwarf that they turned into a dwarf zombie. This is a Skaven, and I think I did a video on this already. This is a Skaven that they turned into a Skaven zombie with that axe in the back. I just absolutely love that. And then this guy, I think this is supposed to be a bell. I'm pretty sure that's a bell like that he's ringing, but I thought that looked like a plunger. So that's why I put him in the toilet. And then you head into this door. This is where a golem was being stashed, but there are more ratmen in here. And then through this door is the other entrance. So this is where they could have actually started. There are the 4 kobolds in there. And again, if you found that globe on this side, you can get through that door. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because inside of this is the library where that book is, which would let them unlock that doorway on the other side. And this is the alchemist's chamber, which is currently being guarded by a trio of gatormen. Oh yeah, look at that. That's so cool. Gatormen in the alchemist chamber. And then back through this way. So you could almost imagine, what if the party started on this side? And again, if we have enough people, multiple parties will be going at once. And so that is also something that I'm kind of expecting. So when you see, someone found this, one party found the book on this side, the other party was over there, they need the book. Eventually they'll join up somewhere and exchange information and whatnot. But through this door is another kind of sitting area where these goblins are. And these goblins were 3D printed and painted for me by the same friends who did the kobolds. They just look fantastic. I mean, a gift like that, someone buys you a gift, that's fantastic. They spent money they earned. When someone paints, 3D prints and hand paints figures for you, that's time. time to me is such an invaluable resource, and so that was just such an amazing gift. Anyways, moving into this room, this is kind of a guest chamber. There are 3 beds here. You'll notice one is blue. The other 2 have the same bedspreads as each other, as well as the same bedspread as in this Lord's chamber. So the blue one kind of stands out. If they don't figure out themselves, they will eventually find something that this was used by a guest who had to have their own specific bedding. And if you check under the bed, you're going to find a box. And within this box is this scroll. And that scroll is going to have the details of something else. So, yeah, there's just, one thing leads to another here. But inside this room are a bunch of dark elf warriors, these are so cool. I got these a long time ago. Someone painted these and just listed them on eBay years and years ago. And I picked them up because obviously I don't paint, and I just thought they look fantastic. So and these are old metal figures. But that is that kind of room. And then there's a door that way. But let's say we came back this way and went this side. This is the throne room, and I just love this piece. You can imagine the lord of this keep having, commissioned it or whatever, and they have a little mini version of it, little mini Dwarven Forge version. How cool is that? And so it's like he can plot and plan what's going on there. Trio lizardmen there. Look at that owl bear rug. That is so cool. That is from Miniature Building Authority. Through this door is the Lord's Chamber. Trio of orcs in here. Same thing again. Open this door without checking, and another crossbow trap. There is treasure in here, and here is one of the sides of that statue thing. And that'll open one of the sides of those doors. So realistically, I think you can get away with just one of those if you found one. But to get that one that was way over there, that would require you to have gotten something that was way over here, or, to even get this one that's on this side will still require you to travel all the way over there. And then that's also a dead end. So back up through here, back through here again, through this door, and here we go into the dungeon within the dungeon. 3 cells in here. One of them has another one of those statue pieces, which, and the next one has a prisoner, and the next one has this other kobold. This is a very special kobold because they mentioned to me when they made these that this kobold had a wooden sword. And I said, I'm going to have to use him in some kind of special scenario. And he has a name. And in the video that I did of these, I'm going to have to go back and watch it myself because I'm going to have to try to remember his name. This is a mischievous kobold. He did not want to be, he doesn't want to take orders. So he has been locked away. And, you have a cell that has something cool in it, a cell that has a prisoner who's on their last leg. They may have some information for you. And this kobold prisoner who could very well join the party, potentially. But inside of here, there's also a bunch of torture equipment from Miniature Building Authority and 3 of these guards, one of which has a very cool flaming sword. These figures also are metal, and they were in the same lot as those dark elves I just showed. In fact, these orcs in the library were part of that lot, and these gatormen were also part of that lot, believe it or not. And so I love that I'm getting to use all of these days. Anyways, so then we reach over to this side, and that is one of those walls right there. So that could be if they, put the leftmost statue in, this wall will lift up. And inside of here is a trio of lizardmen. And here's the other cool thing. Now we're talking about more traps. This will be like this. And if they don't investigate it, then dun, 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 spike trap. And then again, the door, it's a dual trap because then the door is also rigged and there's another crossbow in there. And then this is the final room before the big bad. So this is where things start to heat up literally. We have these demon figures from Mantic that I had painted during the original Dungeon Saga Kickstarter. And they did a fantastic job on those. But there's a trio of those demons in there. And it looks like a dead end. We'll get back to that in a little while. But if they head this way, at some point, they would have needed to have found a lock or a key for this door. Inside of here, my dear friends also painted, 3D printed and painted this Dryad. And the inspiration for them to give this to me was the fact that I had picked up these Pathfinder little gremlins, these little vegetable and flower gremlins, and I call them veggie pygmies because they remind me of the veggie pygmies from Tomb of Annihilation. Look at this little pumpkin one. It's so cute. But yeah, so this Dryad, this is the Dryad's fungal greenhouse, essentially, almost in here. Though it's, stone, moist walls this is the exact opposite of a greenhouse. But she, in her ways, has made humidity and whatnot in here, and this is an ideal place for these fungal things to grow. So the Dryad and her Vegapygmies are over here, and there's that other wall. So they may have come in through that way if they had unlocked that one already. But this is another way. Again, another potential spike trap through this door. There are swinging blades. Again, these won't actually be here, but if someone crosses in here without investigating, then the swinging blades trigger. Hopefully they'll be distracted by all these spiders, though. And then into this room where, yes, I had to use this guy again. Two-headed alligator being ridden by a rat man in this kind of armory archer situation there. And then through that door, another trio of those demons. Again, it looks like a dead end, so we'll come back to that later. I think that's everything, though. So that is pretty much everything except for now how to get inside of here. So you can see from the inside, there are demon doors on either side. I'm still debating on whether I want them to have found all three of those stone statues, and that is what is going to remove these false walls from the demon doors. We'll see. Because I know this, that could take a long time. So we'll see about that. Otherwise, we'll have something else. Maybe they can just bust through or something. Or there may be just a simpler way. But once they do get in here, it is this blood pit. Oh my gosh, this is such a grotesque... I can't remember the exact name. It wasn't Hellscape. It was something else in that original dungeon Kickstarter from Dwarven Forge. And it's just so gross. It's all bloody. It's like the black parts are scabs. As you step across it, you can hear it kind of crunch under your feet and the blood oozing up from all the cracks. But this blood pool in the center is where the demon lord is going to rise out of. But that's not all they have to deal with. If they ever get close to these grates as they're moving through here, but again, this is likely going to be one where we use that old Dicey Depths combat, so I may just have these things spring up like halfway during the combat or something. Where these devil hounds, and I know I have a second one, I cannot find him though, but again, these devil hounds, these three-headed devil hounds. So we'll replace this great piece with this busted up great piece as they broke through their cage, which I think is a really cool feature. But then that is going to then be the final boss as he rises from the blood pit. So I just thought that was really cool. All right. Oh my gosh, 40 minutes. But the reason that I wanted to detail this also for myself is because I love going back and watching these old videos of my dungeons and stuff. It is so inspiring to me. It's so inspiring to me when I see, like, watch this, and it's also nostalgic. I look back at some of the other ones I've done, and all the memories of those adventures really, come back to life again. So I am super excited to go through this again, with, in the future when we look back on this. But if you can imagine, yeah, I don't know how long it took. And I know this is probably the worst part to ever say something like this. I know people like to ask where everything came from, how much it cost. Honestly, folks, I'm sorry. These days, everything is separated out into bins. I have no clue what was part of what set. And there's also going to be other traps too, because I just also want just random, if they're being lackadaisical, well, then a piece of the floor is going to be spikes, or it's going to be a flame jet or something like that. But yeah, there's just sadly no way to explain, what especially the Dwarven Forge tiles here, because that was a million years ago, over 10 years ago now, that these Dwarven Knight Dungeon 1 tiles came out, and then several years later the Dungeon of Doom red column tiles as well. But I don't even remember, there's no way to tell now how much, any of this stuff cost. But like the accessories and stuff, again, a lot of it is Dwarven Forge themselves, and a lot of it is WizKids, and a lot of it is Miniature Building Authority. Miniature Building Authority did these kind of bottle rack things. They did, what was something else Miniature Building Authority did? I know that's not the only thing. Oh yeah, all the library stuff, all the bookshelves in the library were Miniature Building Authority. But those tables and chairs in there are Dwarven Forge, and like the beds and dressers and stuff there. Actually, these dressers are also Miniature Building Authority. So it's just a whole amalgamation. And even this, like, I am calling it like a apothecary or alchemist's little station there, but I think that's actually a baker's table. But anyways, so I hope that this was somewhat entertaining. It always is for me to record all this. And I was thinking about, I may attach a clip on the end of this all being covered with black poster board, but no, we're not going to do that. I was almost going to go get a sheet just to show. But if you want to see what like this kind of looks like with black poster board, I don't think actually, one of my videos or one of my shorts, I think has a dungeon with the black poster board on it, and then kind of lifting it up as you go room to room. But this is another one of those mega room dungeons where, yeah, I can't wait to see, their reactions and all that other kind of stuff. So yeah, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it, and until next time.